more than likely will have more systems as you get older, less time,
And more money.
more games, and more money to burn on those games than you did when you had more money when you were in college than now with the salary?
No.
What happened? You were on a really good allowance or something.
So now that it's summertime, it's a little quieter. There aren't as many huge releases. That's later on in the year. It's kind of a nice time to just look at your backlog and figure out where to start chipping away at it. How bad is your backlog?
My backlog is bad because it's not the slow season for me. I'm surprised by this, but I have a Nintendo Switch. I have all the platforms and I play on console mostly. And they keep putting out new or porting indie games to Switch that I didn't get a chance to play on PC. I opened up my 3DS the other day because the new WarioWare came out. And I was like, oh yeah, there's all these other games that are saved onto my micro SD card in there or whatever it is that I only played a third of or a half of. So I'd forgot about all of that part of the backlog.
On Steam, I have about 200 games that I haven't played, which I know is kind of on the low end, especially among, I guess, like PC gamers. I used to have this phase when I was in high school and college when I was younger. I would buy games for the sake of it. I would shop the deals. I would have an alert for every Humble Bundle. I would shop every Steam summer, winter sale. That was the days when they were fun, when they had like flash deals and trading cards and little games involved with the sales and whatnot. So that kind of got me suckered into buying way more games than I should have.
Yeah, so I have a similar problem of a lot of my games now are digital. So I don't have a sort of visual representation of how they look or where they exist. They don't exist on a shelf somewhere where I can divide them up evenly or whatever. And that's my problem. My backlog is also really bad because as a new PC gamer, I've only been gaming on a PC officially for like a year now, I have the reverse effect. I check out the newest, hottest thing, and like you said, like sometimes I'll go back and realize, oh, I didn't finish this game that, you know, came out last year or 2 years ago or got re-released and I might as well start over on Switch.
You really shouldn't be set into this mindset of having to play a game. Right? Like you shouldn't be looking at your backlog and being like, oh my God, there's so many games I need to play. Oh, well, I might as well start playing one of these.
So I like brown beans.
Okay.
What are brown beans?
Oh, literally brown beans.
Brown
I
beans.
like brown beans.
Following you.
Like,
And as a kid, my mom would serve, you know, she was great. She cooked for me, my brother, my father, and she would cook, you know, multiple things, and it would be different things every time. And the thing that was always first was the thing I liked the least. Mushrooms, cauliflower, or something like that. And I realized that even though these days when I get a plate in front of me, I don't save the brown beans for last, I'll mix it up and have a little bit of each, that when I play games or I'm catching up on something else, I'll be behind on podcasts or be behind on comics that I download to my iPad, I still have this brown beans approach where I think I'm gonna first get to the stuff that I'm not that into so that I can get to the best thing last. Otherwise, it would be, you could think of it as dessert for last, right? And recently, I just had to snap myself out of that again, and I thought, why am I, there's this other thing I'd really rather be playing. So forget about trying to finish this thing, because this isn't the thing. The other thing is the brown beans. Let me get to the brown beans now. Let me get to the thing I actually really want.
Right.
Because I'm not being served it by my mom. I don't have to eat my cauliflower. I may have bought the cauliflower, but I don't have to eat it. I can just say enough is enough. Life is too short.
Right.
And there's some beans over here that I need to eat.
Well, first of all, cauliflower is delicious.
Yeah,
Stephen.
cauliflower is delicious. I guess I'm like the moth to the flame where any like new hotness comes out, I'm like, oh, let me check that out for a little bit. I most recently, this is like pretty embarrassing to admit, but I made a spreadsheet that I just listed all of the games that I have, and I have a little column that I push underneath that, like, once I complete them, once I feel like I'm okay to move on from them, I put them below that column or that row. It's been working so far. Like, it just helps me get a visual of what I want to play, and also like making me figure out which games I consider to be the brown beans. I do have a few games in rotation at all time, and sometimes I'll have a game that I'd love to go back to, like an Overwatch or Fortnite. Or in this case now, No Man's Sky, that I feel guilty about playing when I know I should be playing whatever just came out.
Right now, I'm playing Roller Coaster Tycoon 2, and I keep playing it, and I'm not playing any of these more modern games that I know I need to play.
He plays Hollow Knight at work.
I do play Hollow Knight at work, but I play Roller Coaster Tycoon because I love the game, and I still haven't finished exploring it. So from my point of view, it's more fun for me to explore this one game that I know that I love and that I enjoy every second with it, rather than possibly trying this new hyped up game that I might not like. You know, I'm an adult, I have responsibilities, I have things I need to do, so when I have some free time, I end up reverting to
The classics.
the classics, the ones that I know that I like playing.
I'm not very nostalgic for the games that I played as a child, which were like NES, Super NES. There's some that I regard in my memory, like Super Metroid, as like, oh yeah, that was great at the time, but I actually rarely go back to them. Most games are iterative, and their sequels usually improve upon their predecessors. I know that's not always the case, but more so than with movies and with books, you can rely on newer games being, I would say, on aggregate, superior to older games. Some of it'll drive some people crazy, but that's my mindset on that. And like I said, there are some exceptions to that. But also, my tastes run more towards single-player games than multiplayer games, and so I don't get pulled into. I completely respect people who have a passion for an Overwatch or Counter-Strike, and I often am envious of the level of depth they're able to get out of a game by honing their skills playing that same game iteratively. But I'm more of a single-player gamer, so I'm going to go from one game to the next, and it's more for me the question of, should I just bail now because the game isn't going to get any better, or there's something that might be more enjoyable. So I had this with Dishonored, Death of the Outsider. I like Dishonored. I like Dishonored 2. I didn't love them. I appreciate them, but I'm just like, I went right from Dishonored 2 to Death of the Outsider, and I'm like, wait, what am I doing? I like this series, but I'm not so crazy about it that I should be neglecting, say, The Last Guardian, which I've yet to play, or Metal Gear Solid 5, which I've yet to play, because of and I like the Dishonored series, but I really like the Metal Gear series, and I really, really like the Team Eco games. So it goes back to the prioritization thing. Why am I spending more time on this? And I'm thinking, well, because I've already put a few hours into it, and I hear it's only, and I go onto howlongtobeat.com, right, and it says 9 hours, and I think, well, I'm a third of the way there, shouldn't I? But no, and because they're all digital, so the downside, like you said, is you don't feel that size, you don't sense that presence of all these games and the shelf creaking. But the good of having all the digital stuff is that you can just jump from one to the other to the other. So when I load up my Switch, I can go right from, I still have only played 4 missions of Doom, and I can jump from that to Super Mario Odyssey, to Breath of the Wild, to whatever else, and I can hop around. And I think that's the benefit of having a digital backlog.
For me, I can't jump between games. I can't go back and forth. It's like a mental block for me. I've had so many games, like putting aside even my backlog, I've had so many games where I play 3-4 hours of it, and then something else catches my eye, so I'm like, I'll put this down for a second, I'll go play something else, and then I end up never coming back to it. Like God of War, I never came back to. The Last of Us, I have a suspicion I might never come back to. It's been 3-4 days since I played it. Sorry, Paul.
That's okay.
And
maybe you don't like those games enough, though.
That's true.
I mean,
possibility,
many people would say those games are great, but maybe they're just, like, if you don't feel the urge to go back to it, maybe that's a signal that you don't need to. So just take that one off your backlog. Your backlog gets...
There you go, you're done.
It's shorter.
I feel like a sudden weight has been lifted.
Yeah, it's okay.
You don't have to play God of War.
We're here to talk about this.
Look, he throws his axe around. Okay?
Yeah.
That's how it is.
You get it back like Thor. It's kind
The
of
whole thing.
Yeah. There's that added, like, sort of peer pressure of like, you didn't play, like I just gave you shit for not playing Last of Us, and I feel bad about that. I don't want to do that, but I also like, you should play Last of Us. And you should play Last Guardian, actually. That's really good. It's one of my favorite games from that year. But also, like, I have tons of games that you guys love that I probably haven't even touched yet.
Look, games are long.
Yeah.
They don't fit into most people's lives if you're omnivorous, or even if you're just going for lots of the games that come out, let alone every game that comes out. And it's just inescapable that at some point in life, you will not have as much free time as you have. I marvel when I look back to some of the things that I did in games when I was in college, and I'm like, there's no way. I just got to the credits of Super Mario Odyssey, and without really spoiling, there's a lot more you can do to Super Mario Odyssey after the credits. Arguably, you can spend much more time after the credits than you did before the credits, and it's an ample amount of time. And I'm thinking, as I got to the end of the credits, I'll do a little bit more, but I'm probably done. Whereas I think back to Super Mario 64, and I got every star, and I did everything. GoldenEye, I played through every level of difficulty. I beat that Cradle on 00 Agent level, and that was super hard to do. And found every secret, every piece of cheese in Perfect Dark, whatever. And now I'm like, there's no way. And some of that is because when you're younger, you have fewer games, fewer systems, more time. And all of those metrics change as you get older. And it's not just as a gamer, like if you love literature, there are more great novels to read than ever. And to me, it's just a call to understand what your taste is and where in the pantheon or the canon of great literature do you find yourself drawn. But you will never have enough time to read every great book ever written. And thankfully, people keep writing great books. And I don't think that if you're really into reading that you should feel like you have to chip away or something more pejorative. I think you can kind of just look at it and say, no, where is the next great thing? And I think one of the reasons it may kind of hang on people who play games a little more as a negative is because, well, two things. One, games are more expensive as a price of entry than the average novel. So you feel like you've made such a greater investment that you need to then pay it off in the time played. It feels silly. That might not be as relevant if you're buying games on a Steam sale, which would tell me you can kind of, maybe you should be able to let go of that more than it feels natural. But maybe it's hard to because they still have this presence digitally and you kind of can't put them out of your mind or out of your list. The other thing is, the best books in the world do not waste your time. And even some of the best games in the world waste your time.
Yeah, that's
and
true.
so there's this like, on top of the average level of challenge that a game presents to a player, where by design a great game may often be difficult to play through, so it's a sort of like, oh, do I have enough time to get through this final boss or whatever, and maybe challenging, but you don't hate the game for that. That's not relevant when you're getting to the end of a book, unless it's like Ulysses or something, where it's like, I can barely even get myself to the end, it's so hard to parse what's happening. So for the most part, great books do not waste your time, great albums do not waste your time. Maybe some bad tracks on the album, but it doesn't really last that long. And so that, I think, then makes it harder to know or to size up, do I bail on this game or not? But I really feel like it should get to a point where it's like loving books, it's like loving music, where it's not stressful that you haven't listened to every great song ever. Instead, it's like exciting that there's more great music to discover.
So the idea of looking at video games through this lens of value exists, right? There's a lot of discussion about, oh, is this game worth $10 if it provides me with 15 hours of value? And then people do some form of division to come to like this set number that is either bad or good, depending on what that number is. And that might contribute to this idea that backlogs are something stressful, because if you only play a video game for 3 hours, have you really gotten all the value out of that video game? Don't you need to play it for 8 hours at least?
Yeah, I get that. I totally, you see it often in comments or something, like, is it worth this or whatever? And I think that's like, I can't determine that for somebody. It's less of that, and it's more of, like you said before, the shelf life of it, like from a cultural perspective. Like, I need to like be on No Man's Sky Next right now because like everyone's talking about it. I love discussing culture as it's happening, when it's happening, and I don't like missing out on that moment. Like that FOMO thing is real for me.
By design here at Kotaku, I avoid some of the hotter games because the rest of you guys are all playing them. And even just for the sense of like, well, what else can we be writing about on the site or making videos of? If I know that every staffer or half the staff seems to be playing the same game, I think, well then I'm not helping if I'm also playing that game. I've got enough people who I trust under me doing that, so I should check out some other game. So there was like a time of the year a few years ago when I feel like everyone was playing Destiny 1 and I might have been playing Mad Max or something like that. And Mad Max was actually really good, but I consciously did that and deprived myself of this wild experience people were having. Again, I think it was with Destiny, where there was the loot cave and the game was kind of messed up in some ways. It was a negative experience that a lot of folks were having with it because there was so much tension between player base and Bungie and some of the really bad design decisions that seemed to have been made early on. But I was just happy to kind of experience that vicariously. I also benefited from the fact there that the game got patched enough that it was much improved by the time I got around to it. And so as much as there can be the risk of missing out on conversations if you don't play the game now, I find that more and more as games are updated, there is this reward for waiting if you can. You miss out on the immediate, I'm in the scrum of discussion, but you do get the best patched, best supported, most content-rich version of the game if you wait. And then you can talk to more people about like what happened in the game, and they have all been spoiled on it, so you can have like more open discussions about it. I wish I could talk about them here, but I don't want to spoil. There might be somebody watching.
Someone might watch the show, yeah.